Dr. Diana, and I want to thank you for signing up for our classes today. And we are going to be going through level 1, which is about the basics of energy. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit about this program. How this is put together, I've done a lot of research over the years on energy, physics, biophysics. I am an anthropologist and researcher. I do health science research and many, many other things. If you look on the website underneath my bio, it'll tell you all the things that I study. But I came across this program through a chiropractor that I know, and I took some of his techniques that he used in his office to develop this energetic healing and releasing program. And so many of these courses, the beginner ones here, will teach you the techniques that we use, and we're using breathing techniques and releasing energy on a DNA level and a cellular level. And so in level 1, the foundational course that we are starting now, I will go into how energy works, how it affects the body, how it affects the internal energy and the external energy, and how that can have negative effects on us or positive. And so our programs are designed to release emotional baggage that we have, or blocks, or negative belief systems. And so we go through these areas step by step, and really the body works on command. And this is what I learned studying under a doctor friend of mine from California, and I worked with him as an intern for a whole summer, and we expanded on this course. And so this is what I'm sharing, and it's developed even more with research that I've done and working with other clients over the past couple of years. And I have worked with over 1,000 clients with some of these techniques, and they have been very successful in releasing this emotional baggage that we carry. Because really, in order for us to be in a place of what's the right word? I guess moving into an energy where we are in a positive vibration, because everything is a frequency. So we want to raise the frequency in the body, which reduces things going wrong within us. It's going to be explained here in the first course in level 1. I'm going to go into some details now for you, and we'll do some videos explaining how energy works, giving you the knowledge and the understanding of the internal and the external energies. And I'll go into detail as we move forward on that. And then I'm going to give you, the reasons why this is important to make this lifestyle change. Because if we go and carry this baggage with us all the time, then what will happen is eventually it's going to cause health problems. When we try to lose weight, we can't lose the weight and we can't figure out why. It's because we're holding on to this baggage energetically, and we need to release these energies out of the body. And we do this through breathing techniques. So this is really important, and also through muscle testing, which is used by chiropractors and their practices with their patients, which is a scientific thing. It's not one of these woo-woo things, right? So I'm going to go through that on the muscle testing. You have a bonus item here with level 1 that will teach you the different methods of muscle testing. So there's actually 4 or 5 different ways to do that. There's 4 that are actually muscle testing, and then there's another technique that you use with the pendulum, which is used by chiropractors as well, to kind of see the areas that are damaged. They'll use that sometimes if they don't use muscle testing. So we will talk about that. We will talk about the physics of the body, and the energies and how that affects us in this chapter. And then we will go into an explanation of what happens on a cellular level and a DNA level with your health when we have negative things hit the cells, because inside each cell is what is called a mitochondria. And so that, if it's damaged, will start to cause issues in the body. And depending on what it is and where it's at, that will affect a specific area. And so this I'm going to explain in detail to you how all this works in the body in a very simple way, because I'm always about simple things. Um, Even though I could use like the high tech kind of language, I want to explain it at a level that anybody can understand, where your children can understand. And if they understand this, they're going to be telling you, hey, I muscle tested that and it's not good for you. So that is one of the downfalls of sharing this with them, because they're going to tell you what's wrong and why you shouldn't do it. It's kind of funny. Kids are kids, right? So this can even be utilized with children, and they can learn all about things. And, colors of food matter. We can muscle test our food, and one of our programs, as you know, is on the nutrition side to see what's good for us, what we're lacking. We can check our heart rate by muscle testing and make sure that it's working at 100%. So I'm going to go through these things in the video and explain all of that to you in this level 1 course, and you will get so much out of this course, I promise you. You will learn things that are so simple and people don't really think about, and we don't think about those energies coming in. It's just like, I have my Wi-Fi on in the house or in the office, or our cell phones. It's like when we put that up to our head, there's an energy coming off of here that's not good for us. So how do we get away from that, right? Because we all use cell phones now. A simple earpiece or something different will help to keep that energy level from doing that. And there's other ways to kind of balance the body without having um, the negative effects of all these electronics around us. There's things we can put around our spaces to absorb that energy so that we're not getting so much, because we're being bombarded all the time. It's like right now, there's things hitting me from every direction. And, how do we put a shield up of some type so that we don't get as much? It's like if we're made aware of things, then it helps us to change. And that's why I call this, a lifestyle change. It's not just about like going in and doing one thing. There's multiple things that we can do so that we improve our health. And there are so many cells in the body, and they actually all can rejuvenate themselves fully within 2 years. So every cell in the body can be regenerated and made better than they were before by making these changes. You will start to see them. So within a couple of years, you know, you'll start seeing changes. And that's the thing. It's like I have seen those changes within myself, and people that know me and have known me for a long time, they're like, "What are you doing that you are transforming this way?" Um, and it's what's your secret, right? And so I'm sharing my secret today with all of you, and I think you'll really enjoy this. I think you'll find it informational. And if you have any questions after going through the program, you are more than welcome to email me on my contact page, and I'll be happy to help you with anything that you need help with. And again, thank you for um, coming in and learning about the Zhejiang master programs. Welcome to the Zhejiang Ultimate Energy Foundational Course Level 1. Energy and your health. Our bodies light up with the miracle of life pulsing in at 100 trillion cells. The human body is amazing, and once we realize and learn the orchestration of what is happening within each of us at each moment, you will be even more amazed. The sheer number of cells in your body outnumbers the entire population of the Earth by 1,500 times, and the stars of the Orion galaxy by 1,000 times. Cells belong to action groups or tissues, each with their own shape, size, job, and rate of cell division for renewal and repair of worn-out parts. These trillions of cells work together to keep you alive each day. There are three main parts of the human cell. The cell wall is called the membrane. The liquid inside the cell is called the cytoplasm. The inner core is the nucleus and holds the cell's DNA. That is the dot that you see in the center of these cells. The DNA is a set of instructions telling cells what to do, how to build the body, and how to keep it healthy. The cell is the basic functional in a human, which means that it is a self-contained and fully operational living entity. Humans are multicellular organisms with various different types of cells that work together to sustain life. There are other non-cellular components in the body, which include water, macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals, and electrolytes. A collection of cells that function together to perform the same activity is known as a tissue. Masses of tissue work collectively to form an organ that performs a specific function in the body. Despite this structural organization, all activity boils down to the cell, which is a complex unit that makes life possible. So I've got a really cool picture up right now where you can see the cell and inside of it and how the membrane is holding everything inside of there. So we're going to talk about the different parts of the cell now. What are the different parts? And so as we move forward, here we have like a cut version of what the cell would look like if we opened it up. And here the cell contains various structural components to allow it to maintain life, which are known as organelles. All the organelles are suspended within a gelatinous matrix like jello, right? And the cytoplasm, which is the inside of the cell, as we talked about earlier. It's contained within that cell membrane. One of the few cells in the human body that lacks almost all organelles are the red blood cells. So most of the cells are round, like you see in the photograph, and the blood cells have a different shape, and they're missing a lot of the parts that we see here. We're not going to get into that today or in this video right now. That's going to be in the advanced course. But I want to talk about each one of these parts within the human cell and tell you a little bit about what each one of those does and how that makes energy in the body. So we have the cell membrane, which is the outer part there, and then we have the endoplasmic reticulum. And you can see that here on this little map. We have the Golgi apparatus, which is always a fun word. Kids love that word, Golgi. And that is the part there that is like the zigzag that's in the beige color. we have the lysosomes, the mitochondria, the nucleus, the peroxiomes, and then the microfilaments and the microtubules. So if you take a look at this photo, it will give you a good idea of what these different parts look like. But we're going to go into these one by one so you can kind of see them better, because some of them are hiding in this picture. But we're going to talk about what each one of these does and their function within the body so that we can understand how they work, and then we can look at it from an energetic level and say, okay, how does this relate to how the body creates energy? Because this is where it comes from each of the cells in the body. So the cell membrane is the outer coating of the cell, and it contains the cytoplasm, which is that jello substance in the center and surrounding everything. It is the double-layered membrane composed of proteins and lipids. The lipid molecules on the outer and inner part are the lipid bilayer, and that allows it to selectively transport substances in and out of the cell. So that's how the nutrients and all the stuff kind of comes in and out of the cell, is through that membrane. A lipid is a term for a fat or a fat-like substance in the blood. When the body needs energy, it can break down the lipids into fatty acids and then burn them like glucose or sugar. The protein is a macronutrient that is essential to build muscle mass. Protein makes up about 15% of the person's body weight. Chemically, protein is composed of amino acids, which are organic compounds made of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. So I just wanted to mention in this picture here of the cell wall, you can see where these yellow balls are on the top and the bottom, and then in between is that layer where things flow through. They're going inside and then they move outside of the cell. You can see where the protein enters the body, the lipids, and the cholesterol, how it kind of is in between these yellow balls here in the membrane. And this is not the cholesterol that you think. This is the good cholesterol. Those are needed there in order for the process to work properly. And again, in our advanced courses, I'll probably go into more of that, but right now that's not really important, but I did want to mention it just in case anybody was wondering. Next, we will move on to the endoplasmic reticulum, and we're going to call that part of the cell the ER. That's the shortened version for it. And this is a structure that's like a membrane, and it contains a network of tubules and vesicles. It is a structure that can move through and keep in isolation from the rest of the cell its functionality. So as it's processing things, it can kind of keep everything inside of it when it needs to, and then when it's time to release, it can release into the actual cellular structure. So it kind of keeps processes inside of it until they're completed, and then it goes and releases things. And what these do is there's two types of these ERs. There's the rough, which are considered the granular endoplasmic reticulum, and then we have the agranular endoplasmic reticulum, which are the smooth ones. So each one of those has a different process that they provide. The rough ones, the rough ER, which are the RER, contain a combination of proteins and enzymes within them. And these parts of the ER contain a number of ribosomes, which are those little dots that you see on there. That's the RER with the dots on it. And that gives it that rough appearance. And what this does is the function of this RER is to synthesize new proteins coming into the body. The smooth reticulum, or the SER, does not have any of these ribosomes on it, so that's why it's smooth. Its function is to synthesize different types of lipids or fats. The smooth ER plays a role in carbohydrates and drug metabolization. So basically, it detoxifies the body and it detoxifies drugs and pesticides. So you can see the important role of the ER. It's kind of funny that it's named ER. You find many of these in the cells, because not all cells contain this in the body, but you'll find them abundant in the liver and in the testes where they produce testosterone. So you will find an abundance of cells with these included within them, because that's what their function is, where they need to be located in the body. So basically these things work like filters. One for the proteins and enzymes with the ones with the ribosomes, which is the rough one. And then we have the smooth one that actually is like, even more of a filter, but it works with the fats. So it's really, to me, quite fascinating how everything works within a small little cell in your body. This is all going on. So we're going to move to the next portion. Next, we're going to move on to this beautiful purple image of the Golgi apparatus. And this is basically the storage facility for the ER. So you basically have the ER, which is the manufacturing facility, and then of course those things need to be stored somewhere. So this is the purpose of this Golgi apparatus. And it is a stacked collection of these flat vesicles, and that is in that ribbon shape, as you see, and it is closely associated with the ER, obviously. And what substances that the ER produces are transported as vesicles and fuses to the Golgi apparatus. And what happens is the products from the ER are stored in this area and then converted into different substances that are necessary for the cell's various functions. So it's basically like a little warehouse after the smooth ER and the rough ER process the fats, the proteins, and nutrients. They're moved over to this area. Next, we're moving into the area of the lysosomes, which are vesicles that break off from the Golgi apparatus. And these vary in size and function depending on the type of cell. Lysosomes contain enzymes that help with the digestion of the nutrients in the cell, and then they also break down any cellular debris or invading microorganisms like bacteria. A structure that is similar to the lysosome is the secretory vesicle, and it contains enzymes that are not used within the cell but emptied outside of the cell. So, for example, these secretory vessels of the pancreas release digestive enzymes which help with the digestion of nutrients in your stomach and gut area. I'm going to get into more about the different cells in the body because there's so many different ones for different areas. But this is going to give you the basics right now of the cellular structures. We will move into the next organelles, which are peroxisomes. and they are very similar to the lysosomes and contain enzymes that act together in the form of hydrogen peroxide to neutralize substances that could be toxic to the cells. And so as these are formed, they are directly formed from the ER rather than the Golgi apparatus like lysosomes are. So basically, this is another filtering system within the cell. Now we're going to talk about my favorite part of the cell, which is the mitochondria. These are the coolest little things because these are the powerhouses. 90% of our energy come from the mitochondria within a cell. So the mitochondria are known as the powerhouses of the cell. They are the organelles that act like a digestive system, which takes nutrients, breaks them down, and creates energy-rich molecules for the cell. The biochemical process of the cell are known as the cellular respiration. Many of the reactions involved in a cellular respiration happen in the mitochondria. The mitochondria are working organelles that keep the cell full of energy. Now, the mitochondria are small organelles that float freely throughout the cell. Some cells have several thousand mitochondria, while others have none. Muscle cells need a lot of energy, so they have loads of mitochondria. The neurons, which are the cells that transmit nerve impulses, don't need as many. If a cell feels it's not getting enough energy to survive, more mitochondria can be created. Sometimes a mitochondria can grow larger or combine with other mitochondria. It all depends on the needs of the cell. The mitochondria are shaped perfectly to maximize their productivity. They are made of two membranes. The outer membrane covers the organelle, as you see on the outside, and contains it like a skin or the outer portion. And then we have the inner membrane, which are folds that you see through there, kind of like the ribbons, and these create layered structure called the cristae. The fluid contained in the mitochondria is called the matrix. There's a reason why there's many folds or these ribbons in there, and this inner membrane folded this way increases the surface area inside the organelle. Since many of the chemical reactions happen on the inner membrane, the increased surface area creates more space for your reactions to occur. If you have more space to work, you can get more work done, obviously. So, a similar surface area strategies are used in the microvilli, which is those in your intestines. So the Matrix is not like the movie The Matrix at all. It's in the mitochondria, and they are very special because they have their own ribosomes and DNA floating in the matrix. There are also structures called granules, which may control concentrations of ions. Cell biologists are still exploring the activity of these granules. As we talk about energy coming into the body and leaving the body, we will go more into the mitochondria and its function. So this plays an important role not only with the DNA, but also with your energy. Obviously, with it making 90% of the energy in the cell structure. So we're going to go back to the mitochondria later as we talk about the energy and how that works. The nucleus is the master control of the cell. It contains the genes, collections of DNA, which determine every aspect of the human anatomy and physiology. The DNA, which is arranged into chromosomes, also contains the blueprint specific for each type of cell, which allows for replication of the cell. Within the nucleus is an area known as the nucleolus. It is not enclosed by a membrane, but it is just an accumulation of RNAs and proteins within the nucleus. The nucleolus is the site where the ribosomal RNA is transcribed from DNA and assembled. So in the nucleus, you kind of have that centerpiece, and then around the outside is another layer there. So inside, it's kind of almost like this structure of strands that you'll see in there in this picture. So basically, the cell nucleus is the command center of our cells, and it contains our chromosomes and genetic information needed for the reproduction of life. The microfilaments and microtubules are rigid protein substances that form an internal skeleton of the cell, known as the cytoskeleton. Some of these microtubules also make up the centrioles and meiotic spindles within the cell, which are responsible for the division of the cytoplasm when the cell divides. The microtubules are the central components of the cilia, small hair-like projections that protrude from the surface of certain cells. It is also the central component of specialized cilia, like the tail of the sperm cells, which beats in a manner to allow the cell to move in a fluid medium. The microtubules are conveyor belts inside the cells, and they move vesicles, granules, and organelles like mitochondria and chromosomes via special attachment by the proteins. I've attached another photo here where you can actually see a close-up of what these actually look like, and they're very cool structures within the cell. And you can see how there's all these small pieces to create this tube that have been created, and they work like little highways within the cell structure itself. Okay, so now we have gotten through the cellular structure, which is really important within these programs. And all this information will build a foundation for you to have the knowledge needed in order to work with the energy in the body, especially with the mitochondria, since that part of our cell is actually the part that produces 90% of the energy in the body. And this is energetic healing, and we use energy to transform the body and make the changes. And so you will understand as we move forward why this is the foundation for what we're going to be looking at and moving into as we go through this program. So there are different areas of the body that have different cells, and each of those has its own function. Obviously, there's different cell types in the body. We have stem cells, we have bone cells, blood cells, muscle cells, sperm cells, the female egg cells, we have nerve cells. Each of these areas has their own functions within a cell itself, but what I wanted to do was just give you that basic information to start off with. And so when you look at this, it's like, when we look at the stomach area, they have that stomach area and the intestines. Each one of those areas has its own cells with a particular number of mitochondria and functions that happen within it. Those we are not going to go into on that type of level unless we're looking at something specific, and that would be more for our advanced classes. So I want to give you the basics to start off with, and that way you can have a good foundation and understanding of how the body works on a cellular level and an energetic level. In the next video, we're going to cover more of what happens when the energy is shifted or changed within the body and what effects that can have on us. And so in the next video, we're going to go through those details. This is the foundation to have the understanding of how the cell works, and because of the mitochondria being the energy center, what we can do to shift that energy or how that energy is shifted. So we'll move into that area next, and so I'm going to end this portion of the class here, and then you can go to the next video.